Today's guest is Europe's creative director at Canva. His career has taken him from global tech giants in Silicon Valley all the way to Europe with companies like Wolf Hollins and where he's at now, Canva. He has built his career on a passion for empowering the world of design through a deeply human approach to creativity. This is Unprompted with Tom Carey.
Yeah, perfect. First of all, thanks for having me. Great to be on here, and thanks for that amazing introduction. Yeah, you've said most of it. So yeah, I'm Tom. I'm creative director for Canva Europe. Most of my background has been spent in agencies. So this is the second time I've gone kind of in-house. First time at Meta, this time at Canva. It's an incredibly exciting time to be here. The company and the brand, is growing incredibly fast. And I kind of look after how we show up in Europe and trying to find our uniquely Canva twist to all of the markets that we work in over here.
Cool. And by the way, the affinity stuff looks great.
Yeah, that was an amazing one to be part of over the last 9 months or so. So Affinity was acquired about 18 months ago by Canva. So I was working with the team here, leading that rebrand. And yeah, it's a really interesting project, like having been agency side for so long and being like kind of the pro side of things, to have Canva then have this pro software and make that available to everyone for free. And then to be able to connect that into Canva is kind of the two sides of my journey coming together, kind of like crafting an affinity, scaling in Canva. And yeah, the launch was incredible. We had, I think like 2 million downloads in the first 2 weeks. So
Wow.
yeah, pretty crazy to see. The reaction's been unbelievable. And it's nice to get those tools into the hands of, pro designers as well.
Yeah, congratulations. Yeah, as I say, it looks amazing. So on Unprompted, we'd like to start with something that is particularly off screen. So have you brought something to talk about today?
I have, yeah.
Amazing. If you
Bit of a random
tell
one.
me about what it is and a bit of detail about it.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a random one, but I realized quite recently, actually, I think it's been a big inspiration to me. And it's actually been probably the first time I was exposed to what an idea was within design. And it's my dad's birthday cards that he's been making for me and my whole family, our whole lives. And I've got a few to show you. So
Amazing. Thanks so much.
yeah, it shows like he's got a formula. It's a good one.
Okay.
But they all kind of start with an idea, kind of like a setup on the front of the card, which was probably me when I was a bit younger, learning to play the piano. And then when you open it up inside, there's always like a little reveal. So here it
That's
says,
amazing.
happy birthday, all in kind of musical notes. And so that's where I've always loved Smile in the Mind, the book. And I think those ideas that are like so incredibly simple, they're almost like telling a joke. You have this like little setup and then little payoff inside. And I never kind of, I probably took them for granted. I never really realized until I was a little bit older that, this was the first time I was kind of exposed to a design idea. Also got this one. I think this is for me when I was 16.
Amazing.
Also playing football in the garden. And then I think an incident must have happened around that time where I broke the next door neighbor's greenhouse. So you've got happy birthday revealed by the smashed window.
Brilliant.
And then stole this from my brother. I think he was like loving swimming at the time. So off the top diving board, and then the big splash reveals happy birthday.
I love that.
Yeah, last one. This is a good one. I think this is when we just got our dog, Alice. So this is me barbecuing. Love barbecuing. Set up on
Amazing.
the outside. Sausages reveal the number 5 on the so yeah, always like the same formula. But I think, for me, it'd been, a nice thing to kind of like reflect on as my first introduction to an idea.
And when did that start? When did you guys decide that was going to be a thing? Is that?
I think my parents have always done it, to be honest. Partly because I think they like being creative, partly because they probably want to save some money as well. And we've kind of just like always grown up with it. It's been like very normal to us. And so we've always just made, hand-drawn birthday cards for everyone we know, really.
It's really beautiful. I think they always like mean that a little bit more as well. You've like put way more effort in. It's just such a lovely memory. As someone that I still write birthday cards to my dad, even though he passed this year. So I really find that's a really beautiful thing to do. I might
Yeah.
start doing that myself, actually.
Yeah, it's really nice
Um,
obviously from like an emotional perspective.
yeah.
I also think there's something quite nice in the rigor that it forces you to have the idea before you can actually
Mm,
put pen to paper and design anything. So having to like think about exactly what that thing is before you even start, I think is a really good kind of thing to get into before you start designing anything really.
mm. Do you like maybe think of it before when were a kid as something different, or has it always been just something you do naturally?
I think maybe when you're a bit younger, like it can feel like a chore because you're doing it,
Mm,
you kind of get it done fast. But now I think actually it's a nice way to like force me off the computer. And yeah, I agree. I think it kind of just shows like a different um way of thinking that yes, you have to have the idea first, but then also like you have to put in the craft of actually forcing yourself to draw something and to
hmm.
get tactile with it and think about the colors, the materials. And so um I think, yeah, I appreciate it a lot more now. And I think I kind of like realize what a difference it makes when you design something really specifically for that person and making it kind of, relevant to an event that's happened recently. It's kind of what we do now, thinking how
Mm.
could we go up, in a way that feels current, in a way that feels really considered and the way that feels really personalized for whichever audience we're kind of designing for.
Do you always have like an idea in your head of what the card's going to be, or is that something you sit down and think about?
I think like the longer you do it, maybe this is a sign of experience that
Mm,
the longer you do it, the more that you kind of feel confident that you can come up with something at that time. So now I almost, force myself into a position where I go, right, I've got half an hour to make this card. And then you start thinking about, what are all the things that have happened recently? How can I, do this little setup? Like, what's the intro going to be? And then like, what's the punchline? And
mm.
when you kind of like understand that formula, obviously it becomes a little bit easier. But then the challenge is when you've done, I think my dad was saying he's been doing 38 birthday cards for me. You then start to
Oh
like
yeah.
really hard on like, what ideas haven't I done before? And
Mm,
somebody gets a new hobby or a new thing, you kind of know that that's coming in your next birthday card.
that's lovely. That's really nice. So a bit more about on like the thinking side of things. So how do you kind of set yourself up for your best thinking?
I think in what I do, it's never just about me. And I've always believed that like the best way to do great work is just have a great team behind it. And so I think like the first thing I do to set myself up is try and build the most amazing team it possibly can and surround myself with people that um, are different to me, have different perspectives, but also ones where I think we kind of all agree on, what an idea is, what brilliant looks like.
Hmm.
Um, and people that are just like easy to work with and fun to work with is also super important. So building that team. And then I think for me personally, see like the day to day is like very focused on, meetings and like collaborating with different agencies. I think one thing the first thing I actually did when I first joined Canva was to set up a doc called the Half Idea Lab. And so this is like whenever I get ideas, if it's not for a formal product, I will put them in there and kind of like save them for a rainy day. And so like I really think in terms of like setting yourself up for success is don't always think like you have to solve or crack that exact problem at that specific moment. So always like trying to constantly thinking about ideas, constantly like looking for little observations, opportunities, and then keeping those kind of in the sketchbook so that when like a brief comes up a year later, actually you're like, oh, there was something here that I think is kind of really interesting and it kind of works really well for that specific thing.
Cool. So how do you avoid yourself from getting repetitive in your thinking?
I just think a big part of that is just fear. The fear of kind of being like found out or called out that, oh, it's just, doing the same idea over and over and over again. And so I think that kind of terrifies me. And so I think it always puts me in a position where I'm my own and our own team's kind of like harshest critic. And so always challenging and thinking, have we done that before? Has somebody else done it before? And kind of like trying to think about what could we only do now? What could we only do for Canva? What could we only do with this market? And that's, I think, what kind of keeps things fresh. And then I think, like from a more practical standpoint, just surrounding yourself by different people. I think it's also is also really good. So when I joined, I wanted to try and not hire the same people that I've been working with for the last, X many years. And I have one of them also called Ollie, who's fantastic. But then the rest of the team I've never worked with before. And so I think you get new perspectives and it kind of, encourages you to think differently and not just, do the same old idea over and over.
I think that's quite an important point to know. It's quite easy to fall into like, similar traps of like staying with things you know and people you know. So I think that's really important and great perspective. Do you use like technology to support your thinking, and like how and when do you know when to step away from the screen?
I mean, Canva's obviously tech itself, so we use it for absolutely everything and use it like, in all our day to day, doing absolutely everything in Canva. And it's just made things like much faster, easier to get ideas across before we start to kind of go into like really developing and crafting them. But I think the moment where I am stuck and I know that I need to step away is just those moments when you feel like, oh, I haven't quite got it, or it's not quite there, or it's not really landing or resonating with people. And so in those moments I can think back to like a few where I've been, a bit stressed out or like can't crack this thing, and I often will just like get up super early, go for a run, put myself, out in the countryside and kind of like in a really like clear headspace. And it's unbelievable how quickly you can crack it when you take yourself out of that moment. I can specifically remember like working on the rebrand for GSK when I first joined Wolf Ollins, and we just like were not cracking, like it was the logo specifically at the time. And I remember just like running and literally seeing G's and S's and K's like in the leaves on the floor and like everywhere I looked. And then I don't know, I just had this bit of kind of inspiration from thinking about the forms in a slightly different way. I think like by the time I got back to my computer at 8 o'clock, I'd kind of cracked it before I'd normally even started work. So yeah, just trying to change things up and almost get in the completely opposite environment to what you're used to, I think is always really helpful.
I think that's such a great point. Like get time away from screens allows us to sort of really think about stuff. And I think running is a really good example. It's one of those. I always say that you need to find something that you can just completely take your mind off something, like even to the point where you're just focusing on what you're doing. So, for instance, running. But it's quite funny how you're out running and just spotting all these G's.
They were everywhere.
That's such a classic designer thing. I love that. So actually, topically, I've seen that Canva are hiring a designer, and my next question was going to be like, if you had a bit of advice for a young person getting into design, what would it be, and what kind of thing do Canva look for?
I think like the first thing on what Canva looks for, and also like what I look for when I've been hiring this team and whether I'm looking for anyone. Obviously, like when you read like the job specs, like they're pretty long. There's like loads of things we're looking for in terms of like technical skills, in terms of experience. But for me, when I kind of like boil it down, the three things that I look for is like unbelievably talented has to just be like the first thing as a kind of non-negotiable. Then the second is like just an amazing attitude. And the last is that they're just incredibly fun. And I think if you someone get one who's like super talented, great attitude, great to work with, super fun, then you can kind of do anything. And so I try and keep it simple. And we've grown our team from this time last year was 0 to now it's about 10. And every single person in that team ticks those three boxes and then some. And we have such a strong connection, such like a high performing team, but also everybody like loves working together and it feels like really fun, feels really casual. And so I try and stick to those three things. I was going to say on your second question around, advice for designers, I feel like one of the best pieces of advice I've been given, and I feel like lots of designers actually don't do, is just asking questions and asking really good questions. So I remember when I was an intern joining different agencies, you'd see like other interns, they kind of just sit there, not ask any questions. And I was probably quite annoying, just going around asking people constantly, like, what's that you're working on? Or like, tell me about this, or can you look at my portfolio? And it kind of just amazes me that you're surrounded by so many incredible people. You kind of need to try and get out that amazing knowledge, that experience, their skills, like learn from them. And the best way to do that is just to like keep asking questions. And it's like, it's amazing how willing people are to give up their time to help like teach and help learn. But unless people kind of prompt you to do it, that, people are not necessarily looking for more work or more things to do. But as soon as you ask, they want to help you, and like you can learn so much. And whether it's like learning technical skills or ways of thinking, or just people trying to get into the industry and looking for new connections, then like asking, oh, do you know anybody who works here? Or do you have any advice for like getting into this type of agency? Like before you know it, everybody like knows everyone within design. So it's the best way to kind of get ahead and get your foot in the door.
So true. I mean, that's honestly probably the best advice I've heard in a while. It's the amount of people that are just willing to like help or talk to you is really actually quite inspiring. Like even just starting this podcast, or it wasn't originally a podcast, but like starting this business, it was kind of just a no one really, and just reaching out to loads of people that I thought were doing interesting stuff. 80% of the people respond and are also willing to help. It's just a really, really good bit of advice, and couldn't agree more.
I think it's like the worst thing that happens is somebody says no.
Yeah,
And the best thing that happens is like you learn something or you get introduced to somebody amazing. So yeah, people I think like sometimes feel like they might be, bothering people or taking up their time, but actually people love to help out. And for me, there's like nothing more exciting than seeing like a young creative come into the team and like be really interested and learn something. And then also like making everybody else's lives easier because they're just getting better. They're able to um, do their job even better than they were before. And so it's like, it's in everyone's benefit. So I'd just say like, just keep asking questions.
something I'm really intrigued in at the moment is because like we've grown, well, myself and yourself have grown up in design without AI. Like people coming into like, so we've learned how to come up with good design and good ideas. So new people that are coming into the industry, which kind of fascinates me, that have AI straight away. Well, what's some good advice for them, like coming up with good design and good ideas without heading straight to AI first, like actually thinking about coming up with concepts and for both design and ideas?
I think, I mean, I wouldn't shy away from it. I think
Mm.
it's obviously going to be like one of the most important skills moving forward. So I think it would also be kind of silly to not try and not use it. But I think you want to come at it from as many angles as you possibly can. And like, yes, young creatives can, use AI to create ideas, but also um, work that like really resonates with people is ones that feel like have like a really strong human connection. They feel emotive, like they connect with people's hearts as much as they do with their minds. And that's what people have. And so I think like young creatives thinking about, their experience, what they love outside of AI is like another really interesting way in. And I also think that being culturally relevant is kind of what every agency talks about right now, what every brand strives to be. And young creatives coming in, like often that's one of the biggest values they can bring into a business. So thinking about the culture they're part of, what their kind of like peers love and think about, and like trying to start with culture first and then come up with ideas from there. Like AI does kind of struggle to probably do that as well as people that are actually living it and have that kind of human insight and connection. So I'd say use it, but also like come at it from multiple different angles. And I think you probably end up creating something richer by all of those things together.
Yeah, that's actually a really great perspective. That's a really great insight. Thank you. So usually at the end, I sort of close with just like a personal question, but this time I've actually asked my creative department what they'd want to ask you. So if you're up for it, I'd love for a quick fire round with a few of their questions.
Go for it.
With the increase of quality, we kind of already touched on this a little bit, so sorry for that. But with the increase in quality and capability of AI in creativity, how do you see the human element of creativity evolving?
I think it just makes it even more important because I
Mm,
think, I kind of touched on it before that AI is fantastic and, tech is amazing for like allowing us to move really fast, craft with like amazing kind of perfection and then bring that to life in like really beautiful, engaging ways. But I think actually the work that differentiates from that and the one that wins awards and like really cuts through is the ones that are like really, really human. So I think people thinking about the emotions they're designing for, the ones that can bring kind of like human insights, that can bring humor, that can bring kind of those really strong like human emotions to the work is what makes it feel different anyway. So I think it's going to make it even more important. And like when you combine technology with kind of like human insights, that's when it becomes really powerful. And that's what we've kind of seen from our work is the ones that like really cuts through and people really love.
Canva's done a really amazing job at giving non-designers the tools to make quick everyday content. Where do you see like the craft of design becoming more important?
I think you mentioned it before, but Canva kind of acquiring Affinity, I think, is like obviously a big breakthrough within this space for all creatives and for us. And Canva's all about empowering the world to design. And I think we kind of felt that we can't talk about empowering everyone in the world to design if we're not catering for that 1% of pros. And so now with kind of Affinity launching, being free, 2 million people downloading it, I think actually being able to craft an Affinity and do like absolutely everything you want, but then building that into Canva, scaling it, delivering it to the organization, I think it's kind of showed how you can go to like the ridiculous levels of detail that designers like to, but also you can make that accessible to everybody within organizations within the world.
I love that. A bit of a kind of maybe on the nose question, but do you use Canva like in your, obviously as a head of design? Is that something you use?
Yeah, I use it for basically everything. So it's pretty much like the first thing I open up
Wow.
when I start my day. Um, we even like designed the whole identity for Debbie and Sons, which was the kind of family at the heart of the story that we used for our campaign last year. Like the whole brand was created in Canva. We made all the guidelines within Canva, all like the social videos, like we edit in Canva video. So it's like pretty much all of it is done within there. Obviously now with Affinity again, like when we do need to jump out of that, like we can now go to those like levels of craft that we weren't able to before and like pretty much design everything we would need within there. Yeah. Some of the other programs, maybe a reference to like, I don't even have them installed on my computer. So even if I wanted to, I couldn't.
Wow. That's is that something like you have to use Canva, or is it you feel like it's the best sort of tool for the job?
I think in joining and with new starters joining who like maybe haven't used the programs before, I think actually like forcing yourself to learn them and use them and like really
Mm.
understand them is kind of core to our jobs and what we need to do. Like we need to communicate to the rest of the world like why you should use Canva and Affinity. And if we're not using ourselves, like how can we, do that in the most kind of authentic way possible? So for us, it's like clearly to other people that we think should do the same.
Yeah, I think that's it was probably a obvious answer, but just as a designer, I was just fascinated to see.
I am kind of amazed. Yeah, like I'd not used Canva before I joined, and I think like one of the big reasons that I did join was I was so used to using like pro design software and then trying to deliver that to my clients who didn't have the technical skills that we have, and then that brand like not being implemented in like the amazing way that we kind of had that vision for was like one of my frustrations. And so when I like first used Canva as part of my interview process, actually I was kind of blown away by how much you could do, and also just like how inspiring it would have been to deliver work to like previous clients in that way that everyone can use it. It's like super simple, really easy to use, like looks amazing. And the fact that you can like build a brand kit and then just deliver that to the whole organization, I like was fully convinced at that point that this was the way forward. And like I basically design probably like 90% of things in Canva before we need to get into that specific levels of craft. But yeah, if you haven't tried it, you should give it a go. It's pretty amazing what you can do.
I think that's actually it's not something I'd actually thought about, to be honest with you, but that's such a valid point. Like the amount of times that we've designed stuff and then sent it off and then seen it in execution and it's just being like butchered. But for you to be able to create almost brand packs for them to use and they'd always look as good as how you made it is I think really cool. So just want to finish on, I read recently on your LinkedIn that you like eating crisps from the fridge now. So I kind of intrigued to know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, funny story. So I've always been like a massive fan of D&AD my whole
Mm.
life. For me, it was always the pinnacle. And I went to New Bloods when I was a student, and I'd been out of the country for about over 10 years. And so I'd not been to a New Blood festival for about 10 years. And as we were kind of growing this team, this year I went for the first time. And it was like really refreshing and so inspiring to see the energy and the excitement of like all the students just putting forward work that was out there, was super interesting. And as you're kind of walking around, you just see so much work, and there's so many people there. And yeah, I walked over to one of the shows, and Ellie came up to me and said, "Have you ever tried a crisp in the fridge?" And instantly I was like, "No," and you've already got my attention because this sounds kind of interesting. Then she talked me through her project for Walkers, I think it was, where it was talking about the amount of people that actually do keep crisps in their fridge, and how this was like a great thing that she could kind of communicate part of this campaign. And as soon as we started talking, you could kind of just tell that she had all of these kind of like amazing, weird and wonderful ideas that often can be like crushed a little bit in the corporate world. And I think like our job as the creatives is to always challenge kind of corporate thinking and try and bring new, fresh, creative ideas through, not just for the sake of it, but just because those are actually the ones that perform better, ones that like push brands forward and like the people actually want to see. And so as soon as I met her, as soon as I saw those ideas, I felt like, well, this is a kind of person that I would love to have within our team that can bring great ideas that are going to, yeah, really challenge people and make people kind of listen and think about things a little bit differently.
So that was the first thing she said to you? You'd not
Yeah.
met before?
Opening line.
Brilliant.
I'm pretty sure there wasn't even a hello. I think it was straight
That's
to.
amazing. And she ended up getting a job with you, which is such a lovely story. I'm very intrigued though. Like, have you now tried crisps in the fridge? This is something that's kind of mind blowing to me. Like,
Yeah, she had
that.
a little fridge with crisps in, and so yeah, I tried one then. It was good. I mean, I love crisps anyway, but yeah, seemed to work.
What a great story. I loved it. Had to touch on it. So yeah, that's pretty much everything that I have for you, Tom. Thank you so much for joining. There's a lot of good insights in there, and it's been really nice to talk to you.
You too. All right, talk soon. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.